I must applaud the Cainites of Boston. Where I expected by now the city to be in ruin, a new regime at the helm, instead they stood shoulder to shoulder, they formed a wall, they resisted all opposition. Yes, some of them consumed each other in so doing, but many of my associates from this side of the Atlantic have had to report that their ships are turning round and they are returning to our shores. Not the plan I had in mind, I will admit. That is the way these things go sometimes. Names now uttered in anger. Emem, Prince Iverson, Caius, more. But let's focus on Emem. A Toreador to watch in these nights, perhaps. It's that degenerate, Emem, who earns most of my respect, I will admit. What Machiavellian scheming, what political brinksmanship. She even turned on her sire in favor of the domain. Blood thicker than water and all that. Well, in this case, the Covenant is her allegiance to Boston, it would seem. Certainly more so than her love for Hilda MacAndrews, but I cannot give her naught but praise. After all, she flitted from allegiance to allegiance. Camarilla, Anarch, Prince, herself. She, of course, led to the wholesale destruction of the Boston Anarch movement. Beautiful. But now she is consumed with guilt. Yes, she achieved great things. Yes, she is widely heralded. But all those unlives destroyed, and probably countless mortals with them, she, I am given to understand, has fallen on the Anarch mercy. What is left of the Anarch movement in New England. She wishes to find some kind of redemption, spiritual, moral. I cannot speak to it. But what I can say is, I don't know what you know of New England revolutionary spirit, but mercy, forgiveness, U-turns tend to be a very small component of their collective psyche. Still, we will see what happens. I'm sure the Anarchs will vacillate between hating her and adoring her for her fighting spirit, and sure, maybe they will accept her within their number, given enough time. It does heal wounds, that a little bit of blood. But she wasn't the only player on the stage. Galeb, a vampire for whom I had such high hopes. Maybe not the politician that Emem is. I do respect a Ventru that can back up his words with actions, and he successfully survived the tortures of hunters, needling, prying, burning him. No small thing at all. He even forgave his much-loathed child, Beryl Underwood. Could have left Beryl to rot, to be destroyed in a cell controlled by these hunters, but no. Beryl was free, despite, I'm sure, every molecule of Galeb's being urging him to destroy this corrosive bottom feeder. Beryl is once again a part of the Boston court, and Galeb, well, what of him? Well, as I say, not the politician, not for the Camarilla of these nights, no. I am given to understand that he finally succumbed to the beckoning that has been keening away in his ear for quite some time, something that many of my fellow elders have experienced in recent nights. Whether he headed east or west, I cannot say. He has disappeared from the map, but is this the last we will see of him? I would wager not. While his loyalty is not to some abstract city or society, he does have a predisposition toward being drawn to protect his blood, and as he embraced his much-beloved Zhu Feng before his departure, I imagine he will be back when he needs to return. You may be wondering why I am so interested in the events of a domain of which I hold no part, no territory, no descendants. Well, those of us in these British Isles had many agents in New England, and most are now ash on the wind. Hilda served us well for so long, but after her child eliminated her, well, we're curious to see how future events unfold. Perhaps a less obvious source of intrigue rests with the Malkavian, Leysha. Quite the experiment, this one. Dr. Richard Dunham somehow toyed with her and her sire Halsey and was still spared. As I say, their capacity for compassion and forgiveness, well, maybe Emem does stand a chance among those anarchs. Don't allow me to sell Leysha short, little neonate. She survived an encounter with a werewolf, which, as my master would tell you, is no small thing. She even managed to evade that nasty collective of hunters who do seem to find their way into everybody's excrement. Most importantly, she and her sire got out of Boston. That's right, they've escaped now. Given everything that happened, I can't blame them for fleeing. But the New York court intercepted them, of course. Now, Malkavians are slippery customers. They will fall through your grasp if your grip isn't tight, and the city of New York is very loose, if you can forgive me for saying so. So they have once again escaped the grasp of the Camarilla, as fractured as it is. I am given to understand they may be on their way here. And if that is true, I will ensure that the appropriate welcoming committee is established to greet their arrival. What of our noble Prince Iverson? Well, I have an opinion here, and it relates to putting power in the hands of the young. You know, it's a little like expecting a fledgling caitiff to seduce an elder toreador. It's entertaining to watch, but it comes with its share of fumbling, humiliation, and premature gratification. You know, in both cases, it's likely that the active participant will end up devoured as much as more so than walk away with a beaming smile on their face. But Iverson endures. She rose above it, the swan like a phoenix rising from the ashes, purging all the malcontents in her domain. Note that I say malcontents, not Malkavians, although you can group the two together quite often. She even still pursues her blood project, that fantabulous idea that she has in her head and even on paper. This is why the young should not have power. Well, I rate its chances of success on the low end of the scale ever since that homicidal Nosferatu Kurt Dench tore through Jefferson Library's Tremere, but she does hold the sword in one hand and the scepter in the other, and she does appear to be making a good college try of it, so good on you, Prince Iverson. First-timers sometimes make up in enthusiasm what they lack in experience. Richard Dunham persists, having faked his final death. To this night, he's attempting to rebuild the Red Salon. The Malkavian experiments are doomed to failure, and I would classify much of what has occurred in Boston as a Malkavian experiment, lest we forget Quentin King. I'm given to understand the warlock Sayaka is trying to have Salem take over the New England Blood Research Project, but in my experience, again, the Tremere are likely to fuck those who ally with them as soon as they have good results in their hands. Where does that leave us? Well, the city is hardly broken. Much to my disappointment, Caius Leto remains on their Primogen Council, albeit with greater responsibilities and security in his grasp. Delson Coates remains sheriff, free to growl and pad around like a wild animal if the inclination takes him. April Bosley eyes Hilda's open seat, and I can tell you that such seats remain open for a very short time when you're dealing with Canites as ambitious as her, and Journey has persisted by the prince's side, growing closer and closer. Boston is secure, its rogue players have departed, and outside attacks have crumbled or collapsed. I applaud Boston, as I said earlier. I applaud those rogues. It's far better to have opponents who can put up a fight than to have enemies who just lie down with their hands covering their heads. You learn nothing by rolling over your enemies' spines and necks like a terrific tank, but to watch them resist, to discover them finding their fighting spirit, whether against hunters, werewolves, their own system, or the pernicious British, well, it makes for a few hours of entertainment on an evening once your work is done, doesn't it? So congratulations are in order. They made me smile, little neonate. But don't think this is over. A building is only as strong as its foundations, but you can't see the foundations, can you? You don't know how deep the rot goes. If Galeb, Emem, and Leysha, these humble yet adventurous Canites, were the glue that held this domain together, how long can it truly stand in their absence?